I was the only one up there that wasn't hurt, and scared to death. Scared to death. Really, 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 really scared. So I started asking, screaming for help. Somebody get up here and help me. I'm alone. And then two little heads. I was down, and all I could see was his head and shoulder. He had a hard hat on. And then I saw the red emblem. It was. And then when I could see a silhouette, I blasted them. Silhouettes. They're not real people, they're just targets. You know, like I could have picked a bullet out of the air. Once you realize they're gone, they're dead, then what death looks like is nothing. There's nothing there. There's a body there, but there's nothing at all there. It goes from something, a big something, to the smallest nothing that there can be. It goes from dreams and aspirations to nothing. You know, you can kick it, you can hit it with a stick, you can throw rocks on it, you can do anything, and it won't bother it because it's dead. I didn't give a fuck who he was. I was trying to keep me alive. It wasn't me and a Vietnamese, it was me and anybody that's got to get, oh man, this is hard. I mean, the difference in war and in civilian life, you got no choice on one of those. I think there are people that just, it's not that they don't deserve to live, it's not that they don't deserve to have been born, but maybe they don't deserve to go on living. I do have that belief, that there comes a point when, you know, enough's enough from one person. Enough's enough. You can't live in our world. That's just the way, you know, but the problem there is someone has to have the power to say that you can't do that. And now and then somebody has to give them that power. It's all so confusing to me.
On April 18th, 2006, I had my first confirmed kill. This man was innocent. I don't know his name. I called him the Fat Man. He was walking back to his house, and I shot him in front of his friend and his father. The first round didn't kill him after I had hit him up here in his neck area. And afterwards, he started screaming and looked right into my eyes. So I looked at my friend who I was on post with, and I said, well, I can't let that happen. So I took another shot and took him out. He was then carried away by the rest of his family. It took 7 people to carry his body away. We were all congratulated after we had our first kills, and that happened to have been mine. My company commander personally congratulated me, as he did everyone else in our company. This is the same individual who had stated that whoever gets their first kill by stabbing them to death will get a 4-day pass when we return from Iraq.
We set up claymores. They're bomb devices that you face. They have like 700 steel balls in them. We found a very young Vietnamese person with his legs mostly gone. If there's a hell, that's probably what it smells like there. It penetrates you and it just won't go away for a long time. It's horrible. One minute you have somebody walking along and the next there's just a lump of flesh. I didn't feel any personal guilt. I felt sorry for him. But no personal guilt, no. It was strange, you know, you could disassociate when you're you're shooting at spots in the jungle, but this guy was right there, and I felt very compassionate, and I was thinking about, his girlfriend, his family, whatever.
We were in a couple different villages in Sarobi, which is a city right next to Charbonne. We gunned down these two guys holding a larger machine gun, a PKM, and another guy holding his ammo. So they were just running from point A to point B. We happened to just gun them down. And they were right next to a kalot. A kalot's a house, like a little mud hut. And a lady came out. You don't shoot women or children on the battlefield. But we were just so into the moment. We watched her pick up the rifle, and that was, the machine gun, and that was the cue. And we just lit her up. And I remember just watching, there was three of us, and we just opened up, and it was just blood up against the wall. She just slumped over, and it's like, all right, we got her. Every second, every small little detail of that exact moment. I can tell you what the dust felt like, how the air tasted on my breath. Every little detail you know, because that's the first time you've done something so big. If they mean to do harm to myself or my family, I'll do anything I can to prevent them from doing it. If it means taking their life, fuck them. They've chosen their path.
From the moment I landed on the deck in Ramadi, I was so filled with hate and discontent for the very people that we were there to help that I was 100% blinded and 100% numbed to reality. My senior Marines had molded me into the perfect new guy. One that never asked why, never asked questions, and was so eager to be accepted that I was willing to hate anyone and willing to shoot anything to prove it. To prove my manhood, to prove that I too was an American hero. I used to lay in bed and hope the next day would bring me a firefight where I could kill hundreds of people to show my fellow Marines that I was as tough as them and that I was a hero too. Little did I know, many of my seniors were laying awake in their beds, praying to never have to pull the trigger again, praying that they would survive yet another bloody deployment in one of the most violent cities in Iraq.
You have been fed all this information that, these people are out there to kill you, and what you do is you basically remove the humanity from them to make it easier to oppress them, to brutalize them, to beat them, and in doing so you remove the humanity from yourself, because you cannot act as a human being and do all of these things. This time when this child was basically riding in the passenger seat with his father, and we decapitated his father with a machine gun, and when we went down to the low ground to search for enemy wounded, I remember seeing this young person standing next to his body that was decapitated. And when I think about it, I cannot remember the expression on the child's face. I cannot remember that it was a child. I only know this because people told me later on that was the man's son, the man's young son, who was standing next to the body. And it's because it's not enough to dehumanize the enemy by means of your military background or training or the indoctrination or the heat and the fatigue and the intensity of the environment. But there are times when it is so hard to deal with these experiences that I suppose your own body, your own psyche, in order to protect you from these memories and in order to protect you from losing your humanity, erases certain memories that are too painful to deal with, that are too overwhelming to deal with.
I come to him, I look to his face with the flashlights. He told me, just finish me, just finish. I don't want to live, so I kill him. I know it's not right. It's not right to do this, but I have to. If I focus about all this stuff, in 1 minute, if I focus, I lose my mind. But I never focus about this stuff.
I went back to my vehicle, and I was about to open up a meal when I heard a gunshot that went over our heads from the right to the left. I immediately stepped from behind my vehicle, and my Marines were already discharging their weapons towards the protesters. I unslung my weapon, and I put the weapon up into my shoulder, and I began to fire. When everything was said and done, we went and did a reconnaissance of the bodies. We were looking for weapons. And I remember looking at the bodies, and they were wearing the traditional Jaliban, white Jaliban. And it was completely soaked with blood. And I remember I was looking at the bodies, and I'm looking for weapons, and I don't see any weapons. And then I look up, and about 50 meters away from the protesters was some RPGs that were lined up against the wall. And I thought to myself, they had the capability to fire at us if they wanted to, but they didn't. So that means that they were holding a protest, a peaceful protest. And then all of a sudden in your mind, you realize that you just murdered some people. I was so devastated by my commanding officer, Captain Schmidt. He came up to me and he said, "Staff Sergeant," I said, "What's wrong? What's wrong? You look a little under the weather." And I said, "Well, today's been a bad day, sir. We've killed a lot of civilians." And he said, "No, today's a good day." When he said that, I realized that I was in the wrong place.